Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that every car company you grew up with, Ford, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, is suddenly running scared.
Hmm.
And they're not worried about interest rates or some looming recession. They are terrified of one thing.
A single force.
Mm.
China's electric vehicle industry.
Exactly.
And it's more than just fear, it's a full-blown reckoning. For 100 years, the automotive map was, well, it was stable.
Right. You knew what you were getting.
Germany built precision. Japan gave you reliability. America, that was all about scale.
That whole world order has just been, dismantled?
Completely destabilized.
Yeah.
Because a new player hasn't just joined the race, they're running a totally different one.
Yeah.
It's faster, it's smarter, and it's built on a structurally superior model.
And that's the core of what we need to unpack today. The old idea, the assumption that Chinese EVs were just cheap knockoffs.
Disposable.
Yeah, disposable alternatives built with subsidized labor. That whole notion has been proven disastrously wrong. So our mission in this deep dive is to get past that.
To get past the simple economics.
Right. The fear gripping these legacy automakers isn't about wages. It's about something much deeper. It's about strategy, speed, industrial scale, and structural control.
Let's start right there with the cost. Because that is the single biggest misunderstanding in this entire debate.
Okay.
If you ask the average person on the street, they'll say, oh, it's cheaper because their labor is cheaper. We really need to look at the numbers.
So help us break that down. How much does labor actually contribute to the price of a modern EV?
The data is, well, it's unequivocal. The actual cost of labor in building an electric vehicle is incredibly low.
How low?
We're talking less than 7% of the total cost.
7%. So focusing on wages is...
It's a total distraction.
Yeah.
It's a psychological smokescreen, really. The real advantage, the fundamental one, is structural. And it boils down to two words.
Okay.
Vertical integration.
Vertical integration. That sounds like something out of a business textbook, but what does it actually mean for a company like BYD compared to, say, a Ford?
It means they aren't just car assemblers. They are the entire ecosystem. They control the whole stack.
What do you mean by stack?
A Chinese automaker, a top one, they're often building their own batteries, their own motors, their own critical electronics, and now, increasingly, their own automotive-grade semiconductors.
Wow.
And crucially, they have these deep, sometimes controlling partnerships with the people who pull the raw materials out of the ground, the lithium, the rare earth magnets. They own it.
So if I'm a traditional Western brand, I'm playing a totally different game. I'm buying my battery cells from, LG Chem in Korea, my chips from NXP in the Netherlands, my software from some startup in Silicon Valley. I'm relying on this huge, sprawling supply chain that I don't control at all.
Exactly. And that sprawl introduces massive costs, complexity, delays, you name it. I mean, think about it. A Western automaker is like a general contractor.
Okay.
They're trying to coordinate 50 different major suppliers,
Yeah.
all of whom need their own profit margins,
Yeah.
all of whom introduce their own risks.
But the Chinese model, this integrated model, is basically self-supplying.
Precisely. If you control the materials, the components, and the assembly, you just cut out dozens of friction points.
And profit margins for other companies.
Absolutely. It's like the difference between a high-end restaurant where the chef owns their own farm
Okay, I like this.
versus a chain restaurant that's buying everything from, 20 scattered vendors. One is just fundamentally faster, cheaper, and way more flexible.
And you can't close that gap just by demanding lower prices from your suppliers. The structure itself is the problem.
The structure is the problem. And that leads directly into the second major advantage, which is maybe even more terrifying than cost.
Which is speed.
Speed. The speed gap it's just staggering. It really shows this deep mismatch in, operational DNA.
So quantify that for us. What are we talking about? Development cycles?
A legacy Western automaker, a good one, still needs 5 to 7 years, sometimes even longer.
To do what?
To develop a totally new vehicle, get it through all the regulations, secure the production, and get it on a showroom floor. 5 to 7 years.
Okay. And what's the timeline for their Chinese competitors?
They are consistently launching entirely new, sometimes radically different EV models in 12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months.
We're talking about 5 times the speed. It's not even a competition anymore. It's a speedboat versus a fully loaded cargo ship.
That kind of speed doesn't just happen. What allows for a 12-month timeline? Is it just fewer regulations?
It's mostly cultural. These Chinese EV companies, NIO, Xpeng, Li Auto, they act like tech companies. They do not act like car companies.
Their philosophy is different.
It's a software-first philosophy. They're all about rapid prototyping, instant iteration, based on what consumers are telling them, and they accept failure. Failure is a learning tool.
So they see the car less as a finished product and more like
Right.
a platform, a gadget.
Exactly. It's a massive gadget. When they release a car, they are already deep into work on the next 3 iterations. They're using real-time data to push over-the-air updates.
The OTA updates.
Yeah, treating the car like a phone that just gets better overnight. And they rapidly fold hardware changes into next year's model. That 18-month cycle isn't a gimmick. It's their engineering cadence.
Which you have to contrast with the West, which seems kind of stuck in amber, still bogged down by layers of board approvals, committees, internal politics, and just the sheer difficulty of adapting these 60-year-old factories built for gas engines.
The legacy drag is immense. I mean, by the time a Western company finally finishes debating whether they can afford a new screen size, their Chinese competitor has already launched an updated car.
With what? New battery chemistry?
New battery chemistry, better range, and a completely new, smarter interior experience.
So if we connect this all back to the historical context, it really highlights what might be the most devastating part for the West.
Which is?
The loss of their manufacturing soul.
That's a powerful way to put it. And it brings us to a really crucial point about global strategy back in the 90s and 2000s.
Right.
Western companies, they were chasing short-term financial gains, higher profits. So they intentionally, strategically outsourced so much of their manufacturing to Asia.
And it worked for a while. Profits went up. But what did they lose in that deal that turned out to be irreplaceable?
They sacrificed their industrial ecosystem. They didn't just move jobs, they dismantled these dense clusters of suppliers. They lost expertise in material science, especially for batteries. And they lost decades of accumulated what you'd call tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge.
Yeah, it's the know-how you can't write down in a manual.
Yeah.
Factory floor efficiencies, the synergy between engineers and suppliers, the mastery of materials. China just absorbed all of it.
And that absorbed infrastructure is what gives them this monumental scale we see today. What are some of the stats that really capture that dominance?
The numbers are they're overwhelming. Nearly 80% of the world's entire EV battery production capacity is in China.
80%.
And that control goes deep into the value chain, all the way to processing the key minerals. But the geography is just as important. Western supply chains cross oceans.
All right.
In China, the gigafactories are often surrounded by their suppliers in the same district. They can get modules delivered in hours, not weeks.
So building an EV in the West is like this complicated global scavenger hunt.
Compared to a hyper-efficient, localized assembly line in Shenzhen. And this is where the narrative has completely flipped. It's no longer about being cheap. It's about being advanced.
That's the ultimate insult, isn't it?
It has to be. The new wave of Chinese EVs aren't just cheaper to build. Reviewers and engineers often describe them as technologically superior.
We're talking better range efficiency.
Smarter AI-integrated interiors, huge advances in battery safety and architecture, like BYD's Blade battery.
And one big reason for that technical leap is that Chinese companies, BYD, NIO, even the ones backed by Huawei, they totally skipped the retrofitting phase.
Absolutely critical. Western brands spent years trying to cram heavy battery packs into a chassis that was designed for a gasoline engine. They called them compliance cars.
Right.
The Chinese manufacturers just skipped that whole awkward phase. They went straight to purpose-built skateboard-style electric platforms.
Which lets you design the car around the battery and the people, not around the engine.
And innovate freely. Better thermal management, more efficient motors, and crucially, the advanced software that really defines the modern driving experience.
Okay, so if vertical integration is the structure and speed is the strategy, then the final deepest wound for Western brands has to be the weight of their own history.
The legacy trap.
A legacy trap.
This is the critical dilemma, and it's a source of massive internal conflict for every single established auto giant.
Because they're trapped by the very systems that made them dominant in the first place.
Exactly. They have these huge paid-for factories built for internal combustion engines. They have thousands of dealership agreements they have to protect. And they have these hugely profitable gas engine lines that shareholders demand they maintain.
It's the ultimate cannibalization problem. Every high-tech EV, a Western brand, sells directly eats into the profits of a simpler, higher-margin gasoline car.
The comparison is almost perfect. It's like you're trying to pivot your whole company to the iPhone, but your CEO is also telling you, hey, you have to protect flip phone sales at all costs.
While your competitor only makes iPhones.
Exactly. China had no such baggage. They largely skipped being a dominant global force in the gasoline era, so they could jump straight to electric with zero compromise, no internal resistance.
And this whole crisis, this massive gap in competence, it's now playing out on the geopolitical stage. This isn't just about selling cars in Berlin or Detroit anymore.
Not at all. EVs are the central infrastructure for the future of mobility. They fuse everything: the energy grid, massive data collection, AI, even national defense.
And governments are waking up to this.
Western governments now fully realize that Chinese dominance of the EV industry means China controls the roadmap for future transportation and potentially all the data that comes with it.
And that realization is what's fueling the panic we're seeing in global trade policy.
It is. The geopolitical response is basically an admission of commercial defeat. Europe is scrambling, slapping on tariffs, launching investigations. The U.S. has effectively blocked Chinese EVs entirely,
Stating security concerns.
citing security concerns. But the uncomfortable truth behind these protectionist walls is a fear that their own automakers simply cannot compete on a level playing field.
Especially not against the integrated giants like BYD.
And momentum just seems unstoppable.
The scale is just too big.
It's overwhelming. They produce more EVs than the rest of the world combined. They control the key supply chains for batteries, for minerals, for manufacturing. Even if you gave Western companies unlimited money today, they can't just rebuild that integrated industrial ecosystem overnight.
That tacit knowledge we talked about.
The factory clusters, the deep knowledge base, China spent decades building that. You can't just buy it back.
So to summarize the crucial takeaways for you, the Chinese advantage is absolutely not about cheap labor.
It's about structural vertical control over the whole supply chain that makes them cheaper, faster, and more resilient.
It's the tech-like speed, launching new products in 12 to 18 months.
It's the superior manufacturing ecosystem built on decades of transferred knowledge and localized suppliers.
And finally, it's the freedom from that legacy trap that is weighing down every single Western competitor.
You know, BYD and its peers, they didn't just join the car market. They completely redefined the battlefield. Chinese EVs aren't an alternative anymore.
They're setting the new standard.
They are the new global standard. The future of the automotive world is being decided in China right now.
So Western automakers are facing this existential choice: evolve, merge for scale, or risk collapse. And this brings us to our final provocative thought, something for you to really mull over. We've established that the West willingly, for short-term profit, outsourced its industrial foundation, the factory ecosystems, the materials expertise, that tacit knowledge.
The uncomfortable question that leaves us with is this: if the very foundation of industrial competence, the mastery of manufacturing, the scale of the supplier network, is intentionally sacrificed and then absorbed by a competitor, can market dominance ever truly return?
Or are Western automakers now just permanently reliant on protectionist walls and geopolitical moves just to stay relevant?
That is the fundamental crisis of industrial strategy that the West is facing today.